This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of the Killingley Town Council, and I am calling this regular Town Council meeting to order. It is currently 7:04 p.m. on Tuesday, December 10th. At this time, we'll move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is the prayer. And Pastor Joel from Faithway Community Church is with us today, and he is going to do the prayer for us. Thank you.
These leaders and for this town, which has continued to open these proceedings with prayer, seek your direction, seek your guidance, seek your face. And so I give you praise for that. I ask your blessing on each of them and their families, on the business that will be conducted tonight. God, we thank you that you've promised that when we seek you and we trust in you with all our heart, you will direct our paths. So I thank you for the promise and ask for that direction and guidance tonight as the business agenda is executed. And I thank you, God, for this, just the peace and joy of living in a country where we can celebrate freedom in so many ways, including religious freedom, that we can come before you and really enjoy that wonderful comfort of your guidance, peace, and direction. At this season of the year, I pray for that. I pray for peace. I pray for unity. I pray for ongoing blessing for our country and for this town and its people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move on to item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance except Ms. George, who is absent with notification, and Mr. Grandelski, who will be joining us shortly. Next item on the agenda is item 5, adoption of minutes of previous meetings. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes from the regular town council meeting, November 12th, 2024?
So moved.
Motion was made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion, comments, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 6A, proclamation honoring Killingley Public School Teacher of the Year. Ms. Murphy, would you like to do that one?
Sure.
Thank you.
Proclamation honoring Masha Griffiths Farquhar, Killingley Public Schools, 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year. Whereas Masha Griffiths Farquhar earned her degree from Rhode Island College in 1997 and has served as a dedicated teacher at Killingley Public Schools since then, and whereas Masha has been teaching for 28 years at Killingley Public Schools, she finds the most rewarding part of her job is to be working in her hometown. And whereas Masha grew up being part of a team within a farming family, pitching in and supporting each other and completing farm chores was how she learned work ethics, dedication, and the value of being part of a team. And whereas in 2015, Masha became the Assistant Director of Special Education for the district. Masha began to miss the classroom environment, and in 2020, she started working with students with social, emotional, specific needs at KMS, and then became a special education teacher at Killingley High School in 2020. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killingley that Masha Griffiths Farquhar be publicly recognized for her exemplary service and the well-earned distinction and respect she receives from her students and peers as the 2024-2025 Killingley Public School Teacher of the Year, and be it further proclaimed that she be commended for her devotion to her students, their families, their school, and their community, presented this 10th day of December 2024 by Killingley Town Council.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Jason's coming up.
Next item up on the agenda is item 6B, which is a proclamation honoring Stephen Sorrell, H.H. Ellis Technical High School 2024 to 2025 Teacher of the Year. Whereas Stephen Sorrell has served as an electronics technology teacher at H.H. Ellis Technical High School for the past 4 years, enriching the lives of his students with both knowledge and mentorship. And whereas Stephen, a proud alumnus of H.H. Ellis Technical High School, brings 15 years of practical industry experience to his classroom, embodying the standards of excellence he imparts to his students. And whereas as a husband and father of two, he understands the value of instilling strong work habits, ethical behavior, and a sense of responsibility, which he incorporates into his teaching to prepare his students for success in both their careers and their lives. And whereas Stephen's technical philosophy is grounded in fostering the growth of his students as both professionals and individuals, empowering them to reach their fullest potential and to make a positive impact on the world around them. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that Stephen Sorrell be publicly recognized for his exemplary service and the well-earned distinction and respect he receives from his students and peers as the 2024 to 2025 H.H. Ellis Technical High School Teacher of the Year. And be it further proclaimed that he be commended for his devotion to his students, their families, their school, and their community, presented this 10th day of December 2024 by the Killenly Town Council. Moving on in the agenda, next item up is item 6C. Ms. Wakefield, if you could.
Proclamation honoring Kimberly Barrett, St. James Parochial School 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year. Whereas Kimberly Barrett has been a devoted educator at St. James Parochial School since 2013, beginning her journey as a music teacher and later transitioning to kindergarten, where she has become beloved by students, parents, and colleagues alike. And whereas Kimberly's dedication to teaching shines through in her passionate, holistic approach, which encompasses the development of her students not only academically, but emotionally, ethically, and morally. And whereas Kimberly contributes to the church community, lending her voice to our masses and embodying a spirit of service, and creates an environment where her students are encouraged to explore, express, and grow with confidence. And whereas Kimberly's unwavering commitment is evident in her continuous outreach to her parents, her willingness to share insights with colleagues, and her role in supporting the growth of her students both in and outside of the classroom by instilling values of kindness, compassion, and respect. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that Kimberly Barrett be publicly recognized for her exemplary service and well-earned distinction and respect she receives from her students and peers as the 2024-2025 St. James Parochial School Teacher of the Year, and be it further proclaimed that she be commended for her devotion to her students, their families, their school, and their community, presented this 10th day of December 2024 by the Killenly Town Council.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. Next item up on the agenda is item 6D, and Ms. Wakefield, you want to do that one as well?
I would be more than happy to do this in the absence of Patty George, who has been the driving force for this in Killenly in the last 2 years. Whereas proclamation celebrating Wreaths Across America on December 14th, 2024. Whereas the Town of Killenly recognizes the importance of honoring and remembering our nation's veterans, and whereas Wreaths Across America, a nonprofit organization, annually coordinates wreath-laying ceremonies at veterans' graves across the United States, and through their mission remembers the fallen veterans and honors those who serve and teach our children the value of freedom. And whereas on December 14th, 2024, Wreaths Across America will unite communities, volunteers, and organizations in a solemn tribute to veterans by adorning their resting places with wreaths. And whereas the act of placing wreaths on a veteran's grave symbolizes our gratitude for their service, commitment, and sacrifices for our nation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that December 14th, 2024 be recognized as a day to celebrate Wreaths Across America, and encourages all residents to participate in honoring our veterans through wreath-laying ceremonies and expressions of gratitude. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chair, dated Killenly, Connecticut, this 10th day of December 2024.
Thank you again, Ms. Wakefield. We'll now move on to item 6E, proclamation recognizing December 2024 as Driving Impairment Awareness Month. Whereas approximately one-third of all fatal traffic accidents in the United States in 2024 involved impaired drivers. The use of alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs can affect the brain by impairing motor skills, reaction time, and judgment, which are all critical while driving. And whereas impaired driving is a public health concern because it not only puts the driver at risk, but also endangers the lives and safety of passengers and others sharing the road. And whereas according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, twice as many impaired and fatal accidents occur on the weekend. And whereas through the exercise of good judgment, personal responsibility, and a commitment to never drive while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, every community member can play a role in the fight against impaired driving due to drunk, drugged, and distracted driving. And whereas the year-end holiday season is traditionally a time for social gatherings, which includes alcohol, whether you are driving, riding, or hosting a celebration, celebrate with a plan. Designate a driver. Utilize public transportation. Stay the night. Never drink and drive. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recognizes this as one of the deadliest and most dangerous times on American roads due to the increase in impaired driving. We must all recognize the danger impaired driving can pose for drivers, passengers, and all others sharing the road, and encourage our communities to identify, develop, and promote solutions to this critical issue that takes away thousands of lives every year. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that the month of December is hereby recognized as Driving Impairment Awareness Month, and encourage our citizens to celebrate with a plan and pledge to increase awareness for the dangers of impaired driving. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 10th day of December 2024. At this time, we'll move on the agenda. We have no items for 7, which is unfinished business. So we'll move on to item 8, citizen statements and petitions. Ms. Caloria, did we have anything submitted?
None were submitted.
Thank you. At this time, if anyone would like to make public comment, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. We just ask that you keep your time to 5 minutes and an aggregate of 45 minutes. So that means no one heard anything you said because the mic wasn't hot, so.
Okay, so I'm coming forth on behalf of 2 citizens that had some complaints. One was, people were complaining because the tree that was stolen in Davis Park, people said they were upset. The town had said they wouldn't pay for it, a new tree. So that's the first complaint. The second issue I heard was at Amarante's Wonderland on Pratt Road. If you're coming on 101 and you're heading towards Dayville, normally you turn right there, and then there's the island with a telephone pole, and then there's actual Pratt Road. Most people take that right because if you go further past the pole, it's a difficult turn. And I guess cars were parking there, so I got a complaint about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John LaBelle, 57 Island Road, Dayville, Connecticut. Not quite as prepared as I usually am. But I have I'm going to repeat what I said, not that I ever do that, in July. Seems as though it's still appropriate. But before I start, I'd like to first of all thank each and every one of you for all your service to the community. I think it's not said often enough. You do a lot of work that's unseen, that doesn't get on WINY. So I'll just read part of what I said in July. Seek to understand the prioritization of issues in Killingly and the issues posted on the agenda of that night's meeting to understand where all the priorities are, where activities fit into the budget recently passed and much match the plan of the community development. I'd like to understand why there's no mention of the wastewater treatment plant issues on the agenda and how there is a proposal for funding from contingency for various activities that reduce contingency, including wastewater treatment. We took money out of their contingency for various activities. That reduced the wastewater treatment plant's availability of funds. I'd like to understand how anyone having 3 years' knowledge of the wastewater treatment plant having full capacity or up to 3 years without having a master plan going forward and implementing that master plan, that's still the case. I would like to understand, with the cessation of developer hookups as to the wastewater system, the value of lost revenue. I don't think people are understanding the lost revenue that we may incur due to businesses and housing not being able to hook up and expand our tax base in the community. Much has taken place over the several months since then, but I don't get a sense of urgency on what's going on with the wastewater plant. I have checked on the DEEP's website. There's about 7 pages of commitments that they've made to different communities for wastewater. About $350 million worth. Killingly does not appear in that queue. And that queue goes to, what year is this? Right, 24, 25, 26. They start a new queue in 26. Okay. We have missed. In July, there was an opportunity to submit an application for funding. And the next one is January 27th coming up. After that, that's it, till 26, and it's a 3-year advance request. I've called the DEP several times to find out what options we might have. I've talked with Joe Courtney's office to get pressure to get somebody here before the end of the year. I'm willing to do my share in helping the community get to a better place. Or even asked the governor's office to float us $30 million. Get what they, that was received with a smile, but I was serious and he knew it. I've asked for it twice. Now, before I continue on that, the other subject I have is with regard to the battery project. I've sat in on meetings where people were saying, we have so much to do, we don't have time, the deadline is so short. And I'm thinking, why don't you just pick up the phone and call the siting council? I contacted Melanie. She sent an email back saying, yeah, you can get an extension, just gotta ask for it. Just gotta ask for it. And I talked with the director here, and she said, no, we don't need an extension. But when I sat in on one of the commissions this week, it was like, oh my God, we don't have time to do all this stuff. And so you got somebody in Hartford who's willing to give an extension. We haven't asked for it. I'd like to know what's going on. I come from a background. I grew up on a farm. Okay, if you didn't feed the chickens at 5 o'clock, guess what? They were letting you know. 20,000 chickens make a lot of noise when they're not fed on time. A herd of cows make a lot of noise when you don't milk them on time. If you're not committed, if you grew up on a farm, you understand that term commitment. My father had a size 13 shoe, and he used it. When he said he was gonna put his boot up your butt, he really meant it. Okay, and at 5 o'clock in the morning you were up, and you started doing your homework at 9 o'clock at night. That's commitment. The chicken makes the commitment, the pig makes the sacrifice. All right? I didn't mean to say that. The University of Connecticut has one of the most sophisticated treatment plant in the state. Does everybody know that? Their goal is to recycle 50% of what goes into their plant into gray water. And they've been working on that, and I've got a couple calls into them. Haven't been able to talk with them. But from what I understand, their services are available. I'm going to take a ride up there and see what that plant looks like. The state of Connecticut has a mandate to reduce water consumption by 50%. Do we all know that? We have an opportunity here. Whenever there's a cloud, there's an opportunity. We have an opportunity to do it right. We have an opportunity to see what the latest technology is. We might even have an opportunity to not have to spend as much money as we think we do. But we've got to research the technology. There's a consultant that's been involved in Yukon. He's on the report on the Yukon website. And my next call is going to be to them to do that. Now, where do I get off doing this? I'm sorry. I have represented huge corporations. And when I have authority, I take it. I use it. And I don't wait. Do not wait. You do. Action speaks. Words only last for 15 minutes. There's no action. There's no result. If you don't start it right, you can't end it right. I used to tell my project managers that. How much time do I have left?
You're about
A minute over. How is that possible? Thank you. I have.
I was looking at that clock. That doesn't
I,
work for a couple minutes.
I have material here that I've put together. I didn't have a chance to copy it, but I'll get it to you. And so, this title here is Waste to Resource, How a State-of-the-Art Facility Helps Yukon Save Water. Okay, that's one of the articles. There's maybe 6, 7 articles on the internet about what Yukon is doing. to deal with their wastewater situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing no more public comment, we'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is item 9, council and staff comments. Ms. Clorio, I do have one question. Are you aware who would have to request an extension from the siting council, whether that would come from town staff or would that come from the chairs of the commissions if they needed more time?
I'm actually talking to our town attorney on that exact topic, so we'll be getting guidance from them as to how that process would work.
Okay.
Because we did hear from the inland wetlands one that they were concerned around whether or not they had sufficient time, especially given, I think they had some concerns around some of the lack of maps. So we do have that question into our attorney, and we'll be hopefully being able to coordinate a time later on this week to get through that process.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Are there any answers to those complaints, Mary?
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you for bringing those up. So with regards to the tree, I'm not sure exactly where they, how they interpreted that information. My comment to Winnie was that we had to determine what our resources were in being able to replace that. We hadn't made any determination as to whether or not what our process was going to be going forward. That was the Friday right after Thanksgiving when so the very next day after the theft took place, and I hadn't had an opportunity to meet with any of our staff, which wouldn't be until the following Monday. So, as we all know, that social media kind of took by storm on comment section, and a lot of people stepped up in wanting to provide donations, and so we graciously received those, but we really had not made any. There was no determination, which is what I had indicated to Winnie at the time, was that we hadn't made a determination. So I never made the statement that we would not buy a tree. I just said that we had to look at what our resources were. So that was with the tree. And we were fortunate that we did receive a number of donations, and the tree that actually we received was donated by one of the townspeople. With regards to the turn, the westbound, if you're heading westbound on 101, turning towards Pratt Road, that first piece that people are turning on to turn onto Pratt Road actually isn't formally the road. It's actually part of the state right away. But with that being said, understanding what the concerns are, I've had PD going up there to make sure that there is clear access, because understanding the concern that when you're going westbound, in order to make that right-hand turn onto Pratt Road, it is rather sharp because it does turn in the opposite direction, and you have to slow significantly, which can be a hazard. So PD has been up there several times while the light display, clearly like an evening like tonight, likely tomorrow with the rain that we're anticipating, they won't be operational, but during those times that they are operational, they are taking extra rides up through there to make sure that there's clear pathways.
Okay, and I can't remember, I was there, I didn't see a do not park sign right there. Everywhere else,
Correct.
the signs look great. So do we have any intentions to put a sign there?
Well, we really can't put a do not park sign there because the town doesn't own the property. It's actually state right of way. And it's not actually a road. It's kind of a pathway that people have created over the years in order to better access Pratt Road, but it's not formally Pratt Road. The town actually doesn't own that component. So we don't have the ability to put up a no park, but, PD is trying to, mitigate the area over there to make sure there's a better pathway. Sure. Thank you for bringing both of those to my attention and bringing them up tonight. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing no more comments, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is item 10A. Frank LaBelle is seeking appointment to the Agriculture Commission as a regular member. His term would run from November 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2027. The Ag Commission currently has 2 regular member vacancies and 3 alternate member vacancies. Again, the regular term runs for 3 years from November 1st to October 31st. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. LaBelle?
So moved.
I believe Ms. Barclay
Second.
made the motion and Mr. Gambatista was the second. Discussion. I will say I'm always encouraged when I see members of the community coming forward looking to volunteer their time, especially those that have any experience or background in the field that the commissions deal with. It's always a valuable asset. Seeing no more further comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay. 1 abstention. Ms. Wakefield abstained. The motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is item 10B. Frederick Schramm is interested in being appointed as a regular member of the Ag Commission. His term would run from November 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2027. Again, Ag Commission has 2 regular member vacancies, 3 alternate member vacancies. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. Schramm? Motion was made by Ms. Barclay,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Cottula. Discussion?
I just had a comment on how feels that preserving the farmland in Killingly is very important, and him and his wife were pretty, didn't realize how little farmland there has been preserved in this area. And once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. And it's not just Killingly. Preserving farmland everywhere is critical to our food supply. I've seen too many farms that have now become commercial and industrial. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I'll be abstaining because I wasn't at that meeting.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. Wakefield abstained. Motion carries. Next item up is item 10C. George Schlog is seeking appointment as an alternate member of the Permanent Building Commission. His term would run from December 16, 2024 to December 15, 2028. The Permanent Building Commission currently has 1 alternate member vacancy. The alternate member terms run for 4 years from December 16th to December 15th. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. Schlog?
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion?
I'll just comment, at the last Permanent Building Committee meeting last Wednesday, all the members, current members of that board want him on because of his experience in the roofing, and they wish he was on there a year ago when they had issues with the roof. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Again, that goes to what I said is when people have any kind of knowledge and expertise, when they volunteer, it's a huge asset to our community. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll be abstaining again.
1 abstention. Motion carries. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up is 10D. Teresa Locke is seeking appointment as a regular member of the Killingly Housing Authority. Her term would run from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025. The Killingly Housing Authority currently has 1 regular member vacancy. The regular member term runs for 5 years from January 1st to December 31st. Can I get a motion to appoint Ms. Locke? Motion was made by Mr. Whitehead,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Gambatista. Discussion?
I tried to go back and listen to her questions and comments, and I'm still unable to access that.
I will double check. I know that I actually rewatched it on Facebook, so,
I had the same thing just yesterday, Mary, like,
Okay.
it shows 2 things at once. It'll show an old meeting, and then a few seconds later, it shows this one, and then it shows an old one on my thing.
Yep, if you can, I think if you continue to watch that, they had a little bit of a blip on the stream, but then you keep going. It is the last meeting, so I'll verify and I'll send you the link.
Okay, because mine started out with a meeting and then it went to a different meeting, and it did it today.
Yeah,
Okay.
like at one point, you could
I'll-
hear them both talking.
I will resend you the link so that way you could look at it, but I watched it right the very next day, and I was watching several of the things at the end, so.
It's just the first minute, and we are gonna re-upload that.
Yep, so I'll send you the link.
Now, is the issue on Facebook or was it on the
It was,
YouTube?
for me, it was on
Fa-
Facebook, and it wasn't just the first few minutes. I mean, somehow it might be there, but it would go to the old one, and then it would
Okay.
go to the new one.
I
And then it
will-
would go back to the
I
old
will
one.
make sure that that
and
is
then it would go to the new
corrected.
one.
I did watch, I will say, I pull up on Facebook and I didn't watch the very beginning of that segment of the meeting because I was looking for a specific interview. And so we moved to that segment of it and we were able to watch it with no problem. So I will go back and verify the beginning part of that meeting to make sure that people are aware that they're watching the correct meeting. So I will send you both the links.
Thank you. Any further discussion
Oh.
regarding the appointment of?
Oh, I just said I had wanted to go back and listen to her questions and her comments. She seems like she has a lot of energy. So I'm not into DEI, and I'm glad that Carol Green follows the rules. And her housing is based on how the applications come in.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
We have one abstention. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item 6E. Patricia Dale Beal is seeking reappointment to the Killenly Housing Authority. As a regular member, her term would run from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2027. She attended 10 out of 10 meetings in 2023 and 5 out of 5 meetings in 2024. And the Killenly Housing Authority currently has one regular member vacancy. Can I get a motion to reappoint Ms. Daley Beal?
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Ms. Barclay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Cottula. Discussion?
She brings with her a lot of experience as working with the Housing Authority. So she's a good addition to the Housing Authority.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'll be abstaining.
Abstentions? We have one abstention. Motion carries. We'll now move on. Next item on the agenda is item 10F. Patrick McLaughlin is seeking a reappointment to the Water Pollution Control Authority. As a regular member, his term would run from November 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2027. Mr. McLaughlin has attended 10 out of 10 meetings in 2023 and 6 out of 6 meetings in 2024. The WPCA currently has one regular member vacancy and 2 alternate member vacancies. Can I get a motion to reappoint Mr. McLaughlin?
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Mr. Gambatista. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm going to abstain. I deeply appreciate Patrick McLaughlin's experience and who he is as a person, and his dedication, and his honesty when asked the question, how did we get to this point? Like, I deeply appreciate that. And I certainly don't want to remove him midstream or remove any of them midstream when it is so hard to get people, but I want to send a message like, if you have the head of the authority saying, you know, we should have been more proactive, we have to be more proactive. Like, how did we get in this situation? And I agree with Mr. LaBelle's points that there is no sense of urgency. This could be years and years and years. And so I'm just going to abstain to say I'm very concerned, but still deeply appreciate him as a person and for his service, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask, tonight, are they coming, or is it just you giving that report, Mary, WPCA?
It's me just giving an
Okay.
update of where we are.
Any further comments?
I've actually, I was going to actually endorse Mr. McLaughlin. I spent a lot of time over the years talking with him. His wealth of knowledge is very vast. He's up to the current regulations. It's very frustrating dealing with the rate. I mean, it's not just a matter of, you can do this and you can do that. The state's constantly in flux, the federal government's constantly in flux, and it just takes a long time to get a lot of things through, so, which can be very frustrating at times. I wish things moved. We could streamline a lot of things, but we can't. And unfortunately, wastewater is that very difficult one, so I very much appreciate Mr. McLaughlin's service to the town as an employee and now as a member of the WPCA, and I hope he stays on and helps lead us through this next stage, these next stages that we have to get through.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is item 10E. Melissa Phillips, excuse me, is seeking reappointment to the Board of Rec. As a regular member, her term would run from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2026. Ms. Phillips was previously interviewed by the Town Council on June 4th, 2024. Ms. Phillips has attended 1 out of 3 meetings in 2024 and 3 out of 3 in 2023. The Board of Rec currently has no vacancies. Can I get a motion to reappoint Ms. Phillips?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Mr. Cottula. Discussion.
Melissa is another one of our longstanding volunteers on boards and commissions, and the Rec Commission is a very active commission. She has missed a few meetings this year just because she actually was doing education for her employment. But a lot of times she shows up at a lot of the activities and events, and helps out. So she's definitely an asset to the town.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up is 11A, Board of Education Liaison, and I did hear from the Board of Ed Liaison, he is absent with notification. He had something come up and wasn't able to make it to this evening. Moving on, we'll move on to 11B, Borough Council Liaison.
Well, we're just continuing on with our checklist, moving forward, we're completing our projects for the, that are ARPA related. It's, we are actually, our new, Janice is, I think, about ready to go solo by herself without, I think December was gonna be, gosh, I just drew a blank. Brenda's last month with us. Janice was gonna run solo. So we're just kind of working through those little hiccups as we're transitioning from a new administrator. So, but other than that, everything's on task. All the projects for the fire department are continuing on, and yeah, everything's moving along.
Thank you. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 12A, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget reports, summary report on general fund appropriations for town government. Can I get a motion to accept this?
I'll make the motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Questions, comments regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is 12B, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget report, system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education. Can I get a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Motion was made by Ms. Wakefield. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Gambatista. Questions, comments? If there are any, I know the liaison from the BOE is not here, but we can have our liaison to the BOE present those questions. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on. Next item up on the agenda is 13A, correspondence communication reports, the town manager's report. Ms. Gloria, if you could go over this, please.
Yes, so first of all, as you're aware, the town hall elevator is still out of order. Kone finally was able to come out and do an evaluation on it. And it is essentially the hydraulic system, including the pumps and motors that have to be replaced. It is, the total cost for the work is just over $48,000, which has been charged to contingency. They are scheduled to come out the week of January 6th for the repair. So at this point, we do have this room slated for both meetings in January as well, which will likely maintain only because later on you'll be looking at potentially setting a public hearing. And if that is the case, then we want to make sure that we're advertising the final location. And if there is any potential hiccup that occurs on that week, we're not running into a challenge with accessibility at the town hall. So, but we expect that that will be completed by January 10th. And largely the reason for the delay in getting that done is because there was a longer lead time on some of the pumps and motors in order for them to get them in so we could get that scheduled. So hopefully we'll have that. What we are hearing, they are also going to do a kind of a 5-year plan, capital improvement plan on that elevator. While we expect this investment to give it some additional longevity, there is concern around the elevator as a whole because it was installed in the early 80s. And so we are, really getting to life expectancy on this. So I've asked for a really honest look on what we're going to be looking at so we can be proactive on any potential replacement and plan accordingly in the upcoming years for how or what that may look like and what disruptions that may lead to. So that's the town hall elevator. The community center elevator was also down for just a little over a month. It went down on October 18th during one of the theater shows. Otis elevator is the one that actually services that one. Otis actually was out 3 separate times to troubleshoot that elevator. It ended up being an issue with the leveling, which caused the magnets not to line up appropriately on the upper floors. And that meant the door wouldn't open and it would send the elevator back down to the basement. So that has been repaired. We are waiting for those invoices, but we don't expect that to be a substantial cost in repair. We've discussed the Christmas tree in Davis Park. So the Christmas tree that is in the gazebo area was stolen somewhere between the Wednesday evening and Thanksgiving Day. With the lights and everything were stolen out of the gazebo. Our law enforcement is investigating, and I can't comment further on that investigation. In response, though, I did, Winnie had called me just to confirm that on Friday. I explained what occurred, and we had such a generous outpouring of support from the community that really wanted to see that tree back in place. The Danielson Surplus and the Sunshine Shop donated generously financially for components. Nick, one of our residents that live on Green Hollow, he donated a tree from his property, and Ace Hardware also supplied some of the lights. So we were able to get that reinstalled prior to Frosty's Big Night Out. That is kind of one of those centerpieces during that event. And it was very nice. There was many more organizations that had reached out to us, offering to donate additional funds. And, we were able to, have that all put in place. We didn't continue to accept any additional, but it was really kind. And then Kevin Perry had also put over that previous weekend from sometime Saturday into Sunday, he had brought down a small 3-foot artificial tree that he had put into the base. That 3-foot tree is being utilized at the community center. We still wanted to honor that donation as well. It was very kind. So we have that. On the 5th, I attended the police accreditation ceremony at the Post Council, and with Buddy Conroy, our public safety administrator, and our Killingly Police Department has been awarded the state Tier 1 accreditation award. So I'm very proud of them for their diligence and their dedication for professionalism and excellence. And they were one of 17 departments across the state that received in the first year that Tier 1 accreditation. So very proud of them for that dedication. Next, Phase 6 River Trail expansion. So this portion of the River Trail expansion is, I have a map in here which shows the Killingly portion of it. It's really continuing from where the existing expansion has been completed, continues south to the Plainfield border. But this project also continued through Plainfield all the way down to 205 in Warrigan. Most of that expansion really was in Plainfield. The reason why it was awarded to Killingly was because we had an existing application into the Transportation Alternatives Grant for our portion of that trail that basically starts at the terminus of Phase 5 and goes almost to the Killingly line. DOT opted to add on the estimation for what it would take to bring the trail all the way through Plainfield onto that one grant. There were 2 conditions on that. One was that we collectively decided who was going to administer that, whether it was going to be Killingly, Plainfield, or Connecticut, DOT, the state, to administer it, which we were gonna have the state administer. But the other condition was that Killingly and Plainfield got cooperation from Connecticut Deep Wildlife Division for trail alignment through that parcel. And their parcel largely is in Plainfield. A good portion of that trail would actually have been through the Connecticut Wildlife Division. We've had since the grant award in May of 2022, we've had a number of conversations with Connecticut Deep Wildlife Division on whether or not trail placement through that property would be acceptable. We have not achieved any agreement on that, and so the secondary alignment of that trail pushed the trail along residential roads and then into Plainfield. It crossed a number of private properties, including an agricultural field. to get down, to bypass, if you will, the Connecticut Wildlife Division property. Connecticut DOT said, it basically told us in our last meeting that, Killingly, you have the ability to authorize us to move forward with the secondary trail alignment, and we would take all personal property by eminent domain. Killingly, we have no desire to take property by eminent domain in Killingly or in Plainfield. Really what makes the most sense is to decline the grant at this point in time, turn it back. Really, in my conversations with Kevin Cunningham, the selectman in Plainfield, it makes a lot more sense for Plainfield to negotiate and come up with that trail alignment to come to the Killingly border. Once you get to the Killingly border, it's a lot easier for us to figure out how we're meeting you. There's a lot more lift on the Plainfield side, and there's way more potential impacts on the Plainfield side. So Kevin agrees with that. He's going to continue with his conversations and negotiations. But I really didn't feel that we should be the driver of such a large impact in a neighboring town. So we are officially declining that at this point in time. We will be resubmitting for to start the evaluation and planning designs for trail alignment to the north to Putnam. Putnam has submitted grants to look at a trail alignment south to Killingly to get to the Killingly line. So we kind of know where they're thinking about hitting the Killingly line. So we haven't really spent as much time looking towards the north. So that may be our newest focus for trail components until Plainfield can really kind of work through that alignment area on the southern side. So that's really what we're doing with that. I just wanted to let you all know that we will be foregoing that grant award due to the circumstances and due to the kind of final impact. And I really view this as, one of the core conditions of the grant award was getting approvals through or collaboration with Connecticut Deep Wildlife Division in order for that to take place, and it didn't take place. So I feel as though we really didn't meet the grant award basis requirements, and so we need to really return that. Or just decline it. It's not like we've received any of the funding. So that's kind of where we're at. And we wouldn't really look to further extend the trail south until there's a connection with Plainfield. It doesn't make sense to further extend that south towards that line until there is a known outlet that will come up on that side of the trail. So that's where we've landed with that. I did also add for you another additional piece that just came to you, I believe, either yesterday or today. It might even been today. The Little Theater on Broad Street, this is really great information. So Little Theater on Broad Street is being nominated for multiple awards by Broadway World. This is really cool. And so they are the largest theater site on the internet. And they cover professional Broadway as well as community. And as you can see on the list, we have a number of nominations. Best Play, which is Steel Magnolias. Best Musical, Carrie. Best Ensemble for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Best Performer in a Play, and that's April Olmstead for Steel Magnolias and Libby Stearns for Steel Magnolias. Best Performer in a Musical, Libby Stearns for Steel Magnolias. Best Supporting Performer in a Musical, Angela Foley for Carrie. Craig Blake for Carrie. Liz Wilcox for Carrie, and Zachary Horn for Carrie. Best Director of a Musical, Holly Blade for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Best Choreography of a Play/Musical, Carrie Danner for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And then also Favorite Local Theater. So we left the link here. We've posted the link up on our website. I encourage everyone, if you get an opportunity, to go and check it out. If you can submit votes for them, that would be fantastic to support our local theater. I will say, when you go through it, you do have to go through all of the professional ones as well too. They don't let you just skip to the ones that you want. You have to actually go through the whole thing. But this is a really great honor just in getting the nominations, to see our cast members being nominated, as well as our productions as a whole for the Little Theater on Broad Street is fantastic. I actually attended the Seussified Christmas Carol this past weekend. It is a phenomenal production. They do an amazing job. If you get an opportunity this weekend to attend the Seussified Christmas Carol, go to it. It's so fun, and they do such an amazing job. So I did want to put that out there. Lastly, I will be forwarding to you some additional pictures, but this just really occurred over the last 24 hours. The footbridge that's over in downtown Danielson, we've had to officially close the footbridge due to structural impacts. So we became aware of one of the structural footings on the bridge has, the concrete has let go. We're engaging with a structural engineer. I believe they're going to be out I think they were pending to come out tomorrow, but with the weather, they may not be able to come out. So they may not be able to come out until early part of next week to begin the analysis of what needs to be done and what our true limitations are on it. But, we recognize it's only a footbridge. It's not having weighted vehicles going over it, but that side of the bridge, that abutment area, it is truly sagging. It has no structural reinforcement at this point in time due to the spalling of the concrete. So I'll send you all pictures of that. I just wanted you to all be aware we have formally closed it. We've notified PD and emergency services around that, but and we are trying to find out very quickly what it will take to be able to potentially reopen it and what that may look like overall, and whether or not we have to look at replacing the entire bridge or whether we can salvage what we have. So more to come on the footbridge. Any questions on my report before I go to the WPCA update?
Mr. Grandelski.
Who is the ultimate guru, top banana that owns that, the walking trail? Is that
The town.
federal? Is it
No.
state?
The town owns it. So we receive grant funding, and we own, and ultimately after it's completed, we own the river trail, which is why we are required to maintain it.
Yeah, but
The funding comes from, it's federal and state funding for the grant portions. The Transportation Alternatives Grant is federal money and state money, so there's no local money going into it. It's federal money, and then the match is done by the state. But once the trail is completed, part of the acceptance of the grant is that the towns maintain it, and we own the infrastructure at that
I'm
point.
trying to look at who is the ultimate. This is a national program to have trails and that sort of thing. And is this like the top, is that a federal, the oversight?
So we've worked very on the, as far as the trail is concerned, the funding for this, because a lot of it is federal money. We've worked very closely with Courtney's office and Murphy's office. They've actually been in several of the meetings that we have had, and they've had additional meetings with Connecticut DEP to have conversations around trail alignment. And so, they've definitely tried to assist in walking through concerns that the Wildlife Division may have with regards to a recreational use. Ultimately, what it comes down to is by putting a trail on that property, it changes the use of the property from just a wildlife preserve area to a recreational use. And that is a challenge, I believe, from their funding components as well. So
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
Who is the top dog on that? And
Well, it's
if
really
someone-
about the funding. It's really about where the funding comes from.
Yeah.
But who manages that parcel of land is Connecticut. That is Connecticut-owned property. The trail itself, though, the grant comes largely federal, partially state. But once completed, the trail is then owned by the municipalities.
Okay, all right, so it's, yeah, try to use, I don't, I oversee Courtney, but sometimes it seems Courtney, Blumenthal, and Murphy, if we could get them involved and
Yeah.
maybe DEEP, come on, guys, let's kind of work together, but if it really changes the whole nature of that,
Yeah.
redesignates it or real.
I will
then-
say, our fellow federal delegates have worked very diligently on trying to help navigate, because they don't want to see federal money get turned back either. Again, there's a lot more to work on that, and the largest portion of that is in Plainfield. So I think it really needs to be Plainfield kind of driving that negotiation versus Killingly.
No, I agree with you on that.
So-
Yeah, that would-
So it makes sense at this point in time for that grant to be bypassed. It's not a forever thing, it's just, they have a lot more to work through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Barclay had a question.
I had a question in regards to the comment about NDDH's request for a dollar per capita increase for next year. Where does that line with all of the other health departments? And that's a steep increase.
Okay, so I have not evaluated that based on what other district departments of health are communicating to their communities. I will have to pull that information together, and I can get you that information. I don't have it prepared for tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
Who inspects the bridges? Whose responsibility is that bridge? Is that ours?
It is the town's bridge, yes. And so, it being a footbridge, I don't know what the requirement is for, duration of time in between inspections. I would have to go back to our engineering department. But we generally would contract out for the thorough inspections that have to take place. Visual inspections are a different matter. And so it was visually noted by some of our emergency response that there may be a cause for concern. And we went out and did visual inspection, which is why we took the precautions that we did.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
It is a big concern, yes,
Yeah, there's-
absolutely.
There's no rebar in that area, otherwise that would have never fell down.
Well, there is rebar, but it's all spalled off and has come off. So he did check for that. There is rebar throughout. It's definitely spalled and cracked again over time, or with any major water flow event has probably also impacted that as well. So we need to get that structural engineer out to really look at it and determine what is our safe path forward for that.
Ms.
And you
Wakefield.
can go back to Ed if not. Nope. Well, I was just going to comment, I actually went on after I saw your link, I think it was on the Facebook, the town Facebook.
Yeah, I think we posted it on the town's
Um,
Facebook page.
It, maybe 10 minutes, just have to keep going, no vote for all those professional
Oh.
ones and.
You can vote if you want. I
I-
just know that
but-
there's a lot of professional ones to get through before you get to the community ones.
What I did note, though, when it came back to the small theater, other than the Wyndham one, there's nobody up in this area. They're all Gold Coast, Southern Connecticut, so that's saying something, so.
Mr. Grandelsky.
So how are we for funding for the structural engineer? We have enough in contingency to,
So there is funding for professional services in the engineering department's budget for things like this. And so we'll look to utilize that first. Again, and then if we have to go beyond that, then we would look at contingency for additional, if we have to do additional analysis.
because with the low level of the water now, we can get at it. I mean,
Correct.
that's-
Now's the
that's
time
a
to do
good
it.
time. If it's gonna happen, now is a good time, but.
Right, but I don't think he wants to be out there tomorrow
But,
in the
oh,
massive
that's
storm.
Yes, I'm just gonna say
Because I
that.
believe it was supposed to be tomorrow that he was going to be
3 to
out,
4
so.
inches, that would not be too good. Then we're
Correct.
back to where we were a year ago, where, everything was overwhelmed
Yeah.
with water, so, okay.
Any other questions, comments?
I had a question about the elevator and paying $50,000 with the contingency. Is that what we decided? I thought that there was some talk of using it, so we have 600,000 left from the, I would say mystery money, everybody hates that.
From the unallocated capital.
Yeah.
So due to the nature of having to be able to authorize the transaction, I had reached out to Jason to determine whether or not that funding was an option. Obviously, utilizing 50,000 out of contingency really reduces our contingency value for the remainder of the year. He was unclear as to whether or not there would be sufficient support for that, and so we really needed to get the items ordered, and so that's why I moved forward with contingency in order to be able to get that moved forward. So I'm not seeking to look for alternative, although if we do have another significant issue that arises, we're going to have to have a different conversation.
So it's just an urgency matter. Can we pay that back from the 600, or that's not how it works?
You could decide to
And we could
reallocate.
pay an engineer because we have time with that?
I would say that I think that we have sufficient funding within the operating budget to manage the structural engineer analysis. But any repair, we would have to come for capital investment funding on that. I don't think that we wouldn't have it sufficient within the operating budget, or that's my initial thought. But again, we haven't had the analysis done. We don't have any costs, so, who knows? But it's probably not a cheap fix, I don't think.
So, tell me again which contingency fund we took from as, admin, building, whatever, and is there concern that we need to pay it back to make sure there's money in there?
So I took it out of the operating, general funds, operating contingency budget for the year. So the town has been budgeting roughly $250,000 annually. That's been used for the pay increases for non-union and for emergency type situations. So at this point, we're still in good shape on our contingency. So if we were to start rising to a concern, I would be bringing something before you to reconsider. One of the other areas that we're really tracking closely is our paramedic intercept. That cost has increased pretty significantly and will likely outpace that budget throughout the year, and that will likely need to be funded through contingency. It's a matter of how many calls and what call volume we're receiving on that. So that's one we're trying to track pretty closely, and that may be a change in the conversation.
So, as Ms. Caloria said, she did reach out to me, and my response was, without speaking to council members, I didn't myself want to commit to where the funding was going to come from without having the opportunity to talk to everybody first, and just asked what other possible funding sources were available, and that's when she ended up using contingency.
Can we get copies of the bridge inspection reports?
Sure.
Because I would think that would be an avenue, because that doesn't happen overnight.
Sure.
I just want to bring one thing up. I know it wasn't in your report. I did have someone I was speaking with last night had indicated to me that they had stopped at DOT regarding the DOT permits for the project on Hartford Pike.
Okay.
Over by Killenly Commons. And what they were told was, in a sense, that the permit hadn't been finalized. Now, I know I had conversation when concern was brought up to me before with what was going on that project site. I had been told that DOT had granted the permit, but now I'm getting told something differently. Do we actually have a copy?
No, we don't receive a copy of that permit.
Okay.
So I would have to go back to DOT and ask them where they are with processing that permit.
Okay.
So, and I can find that out. I can
Okay.
have them reach out and see what DOT's process is on it and if they've, where they are with issuing.
And I would be concerned too, if it did get finalized or authorized recently, did it happen after they started the project? And are there any ramifications for the project going this far without DOT permitting?
Yeah,
If
I
it
don't
did.
know. Yeah, I'll have to find that out and get back to you on that. I'm not exactly sure where they are with their permitting process with DOT.
Per
thank
the planning and zoning meeting, none of that construction was supposed to start until that DOT permit was issued.
That was what I recalled as well. So, any more comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which was the WPCA moratorium update.
So, as I reported last month, we were waiting for Connecticut Deep to give us authorization to move forward with issuing the RFQ. Engineering, they actually had a conversation with our engineering department today and have given the verbal authorization to move forward with the RFQ, so we should be able to begin that process of issuing the RFQ. They didn't have any modifications or recommendations on the RFQ language, which is great. So we'll get that out on the streets ASAP, so that way we begin the process of selecting a firm for that. We've been trying to coordinate with our federal delegates to come in and do a site tour. We did receive notification that as of right now, we believe that we will have Courtney here on Friday in the morning to be able to do a tour. He did ask for a very small group, just because he doesn't have a lot of time. So we've given him a list of who we have right now. If one or two council members wants to join, I'm sure that's not going to be an issue. And then I believe that he will be there around 10:30. I think that's what I have on my calendar. But he has indicated that he's kind of pressed for time. But we are still looking at trying to have a larger group tour, including Murphy and our state senators, Blumenthal, probably in January. That's what we're hearing from Murphy and Blumenthal's office, is that they would be looking to do a tour through in January. Again, this is to educate them on, because we're getting ready to resubmit again for federal earmark funds. Courtney has supported us in the past for earmark funds, so has it Murphy. And so, in our conversations, so it's trying to get them to be able to really have a much more working knowledge of what our challenges are, so that way they can better advocate at the federal level. I attended the CCM conference this past week. The second day, they had a panel on hot topics. Part of that, they were talking about economic development and housing. One of my comments to them was that they need to peel back and really talk about infrastructure, because aging infrastructure like our wastewater treatment plants really puts a barricade to economic development and housing development from the very get-go. So I did make a connection with the executive director and federal grant coordinator for the National League of Cities. She's an individual that has worked very closely with federal delegates across the country in order to be able to negotiate in the ARPA funding, as well as managing direct municipal funding of the federal infrastructure money. So I've made the connection with her. Her and I have been started email correspondence. So I'm hoping that we can make other inroads on federal delegation or federal infrastructure money that can be directly awarded to municipalities in order to be able to start, finding that funding. So we had a good connection on that too. So we are trying to reach out to a number of opportunities. Connecticut Deep is well aware of our circumstances and they're willing to work through their program availabilities, but it's been clear that they've indicated that, Connecticut Deep is not, state of Connecticut is not going to be the sole funding source. And so we're trying to get all of those partners in the room to have that conversation of, it's not one funding source. Like the federal has said, it's not just going to be federal. That's fine. Let's get everybody in the room. So it's been a very good reception that they've had when I've, articulated to them that Killingly, the town council, has put in $2 million to get into the design. We need to get this moving. We mean business. This has to happen sooner than later. This is critical for our community, for Brooklyn, and they've been very receptive to that and working with all those delegates. So we're trying to get them all into the same room at the same time to really talk about it. We're also reaching out to the governor's office as well to see if I can have the governor or even the lieutenant governor come in for a tour as well and really sit down and talk about how we can effectuate funding in a more streamlined manner than what we have typically seen for wastewater funding, which typically has taken, better part of a decade.
I was talking to John LaBelle for the last week, and he brought up something that DEEP also has design funding available, not just on the other end, the clean
Yes.
water end, but, we're looking at the RFQ, but because we allocated the $2 million, is DEP not, are they gonna sort of disregard it, or can we apply to them for additional
Right.
design funding?
Yes, so we can apply to them, and the way that we have written the RFQ will allow us to still get reimbursement for costs associated under that grant. So that's why we've been very cautious with our steps with regards to the RFQ, so that way if funding does become available, it can be potentially retroactively applied to costs incurred prior to the actual grant award. So we've been in conversation with Connecticut Deep on that as well.
And then how about, have we reached out, and again, talking with John, he seems to dig up a lot of.
Which
good
is
stuff.
great.
And, he was talking something to me, he didn't get completed on it or whatever, but is there any way that we could get some additional help from UConn? They've came out and done some things at, Cat Hollow, a different entity of UConn, but it says something in a wastewater scenario that we can use, also bring in their expertise. I don't know where we are with that, if that's an avenue that, I'm looking at every avenue we can pursue, that's.
Yeah, absolutely, and we want to make sure that we look at every avenue. And, we're willing to bring in, we're also looking at other plants across the state that have done other increases or other plant modifications to kind of pick their brains. How did they get funding? How did they go about doing certain things? So we are trying to look at as many expertise and, pick everyone's brains on that. So I don't know if Dave has specifically reached out to UConn or not, so I can bring that up to him and offer, and I'm sure he's more than willing to accept any additional information that can help move this forward.
Well, that's what I want, throw out, because whatever, if someone has a tidbit and can move us along, because
Agreed.
we can't wait. We've got to move this. This is more urgent. I feel it's very urgent to get this going on.
Yep.
The longer we wait, economic development is dead. And I've got some comments from some individuals, and they're kind of very upset. They had some potential projects in the works, and they said without sewer, they're going nowhere, and their people are not gonna pursue it too much further. But the trouble is, I can't get a list, I would like to get a list of names of these people and where they are in the economic hierarchy, that, to say, if we got this group on board, we're losing 10 grand in tax money, or we are losing millions in tax money. We can't get to the size of the entities. No one wants to put their name out. And somehow that would add more fuel to the fire to get, if we're gonna get, we have a lot of development that's potentially available to go in the not-too-distant future, but this is 6, 7 years out, and that's a very difficult scenario. And then in regards, like with Brooklyn, with their over-sending product to us, how do we handle that? Now, the moratorium, did we include their excess flow when Wright Pierce did the study? Or were they looking at the maximum flow of Brooklyn? It's funny how you start looking at all these things, but, and again, it seems like, hopefully nobody's completely asleep at the wheel, but for them to even get to the point where they're sending more than the contract is allowing, that's kind of disturbing. And then that brings on to the fact that we have this moratorium on top of it. And it's, I don't know, people from Brooklyn are calling me, and I'm saying, wait a minute, read your contract. And then they're totally not aware, some of the people are not aware that we actually took more flow than they were supposed to give us. And, oh, are you gonna cut us back? I don't know. That's way beyond my, so is that something, since we set the precedent, it's been a number of years that they've been sending us more flow.
Well, they adjusted their on our last contract negotiation, we adjusted the contract to reflect what their current, they went a little bit above what their average current flow was to us. And that's since been reached. We've been having close conversations with our legal team on what would be our ramifications should, Brooklyn send more than what they're contracted for. But we've been having conversations with Brooklyn. They're well aware of what the moratorium is. They're well aware of what they've contracted with the town for. And so they've been abiding at this point to the contract, and they've been communicating that moratorium on their side of the fence as well.
Well, because it was interesting at the WPC meeting the other night, or whenever it was, and there's an entity in Brooklyn, and they're complaining that they're looking at, they have an option to buy on a piece of property. There's a vacant house and a garage, both have sewer connections and whatever, and they said, well, it's already there, we should be allowed to do it. And then in the conversation, they're saying, well, we have an existing facility on I forget what, Providence Pike, I guess it was. This is such and such on Providence Pike, and then we have another facility on Providence Pike. And I'm trying to figure out, it was Valvoline Oil Change was talking about putting a brand-new facility in. So he said, well, we're not changing anything. We're going to go from the old facility, and we're going to have a new facility. We're just going to have a bathroom and a sink for our employees, no change. Well, the existing facility was not in Brooklyn. It was in Killingly on Main Street.
Correct.
Where are these people coming from to even be at the meeting and having us discuss? It was a waste.
Yes. Yeah, I had heard about that.
I was very
and it's
frustrated
just-
sitting at the meeting. We don't have a lot of time. We got issues here to develop, and these guys come to town. They can't go to Brooklyn, and I don't know. There's so much confusion with all the moratorium stuff that, yeah, hopefully we got to get a better handle on this.
No, I do have one question. Something that was brought up to me. I had a conversation with someone that works at a sewer treatment plant in eastern Connecticut. And the conversation came up over having a for-profit entity running it for the time period we did. And is there a possibility that that's why we ended up where we're at, where there wasn't the lack of urgency and the lack of action until the town took it back over?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think that really what it boils down to is we were getting funding for nitrogen and phosphorus improvements. In the perspective of grant funding, typically you don't get more capital investment funding until the project is completed, and then you move on to the next one, especially when you're looking at federal and state money. So that project took a long time to land. This DEP kicked that back several times for redesign and for rescoping, and that took, more than 10 years to finally get that project underway. It's, so that's the challenge. That was an existing, that was bringing the plant up to current specifications, if you will, with regards to its discharge. The expansion, while it was recognized in the 2013 plan study that was done, nitrogen and phosphorus was a higher concern at that point in time, because we were approaching and then ultimately in violation. So, I know I've said this before, but and people are probably tired of hearing it, but it's when very similar to when you have a house. If you have a leaking roof and you have a broken boiler or a soon-to-be broken boiler, and you are potentially want an expansion on your house, the first thing you're going to do is deal with your roof. The next thing you're going to do is replace your boiler, and then you look at your expansion, right? So, it's not because we were privately operated. It had nothing to do with that. I think it's really just, we were funding-wise trying to deal with the immediate issues with regards to nitrogen and phosphorus in order to become in compliance with that. And funding sources, you're not able to necessarily get expanded funding until you've completed one project. That's just how grant awards work.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got a question. And I am going to have the meeting with them with my questions. More and more, when I look at the numbers, I'm kind of, I do not question at all that they're at capacity. I just think they've been at capacity longer than, we're going to reach this magic spot of 80,000 gallons per day more, and now we're going to be at capacity. I think they've actually been at capacity for a while. So I've kind of am questioning the strategy now of a moratorium based on that particular report versus the strategy of either then when we picked up the ball, or probably we should have done it sooner, saying, putting it back on the state, saying, okay, I'm telling you we're going to start violating blah, blah, blah. I'm putting the onus back on you if we don't get the upgrade, if we don't get the funding, which is something we do. And I know Connecticut is more strict. But, so I'm going to save some of the questions. But with that strategy in mind, the strategy choice that we have made, and with the concept of earmarked money, if this goes the way it does, and they earmark some money for us, and say Frito-Lay were to mitigate a little bit and give us a little breathing space, can we take the moratorium off during that earmarked point?
Potentially, there's no clear answer on that. And there's a lot of ifs in all of that. So is there possible that there is some loosening of the moratorium? Possibly, depending on what occurs with Frito-Lay, depending on, the earmark funding does go a lot faster. And so we would be able to hit that ground running a lot faster. And does that change our ability to accept stuff more in the meantime? Again, a lot of ifs there. I know that the WPCA, if they have the ability to loosen that moratorium, they would want to do that. We want to do that. So
I'm
absolutely.
thinking, would we be, if we had some earmarked money, would we be penalized if we did decide to loosen it?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is item 14, unfinished business for town council action, and we have none. So we'll move on to item 15A, consideration and action on the resolution adopting the collective bargaining agreement between the Killenly Board of Education and the Killenly Administrators Association for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second it.
Motion was made by Ms. Wakefield, second by Mr. Cottula. Ms. Coloria, can you go over this, please?
So this item has been adopted by the Killingley Board of Education, as well as the Killingley Administrators Association by statute. It can come before the town council for the town council to ultimately, if you determine that you're going to reject this, then it would go to arbitration. The town council's required, your window for rejecting a agreement is 30 days from the date of filing with the town. That filing occurred on November 15th. And then the Board of Education did provide a summary of what they have in their negotiations. And I believe, Mr. Anderson, you were the appointed liaison to the negotiating committee.
Thank you. As Ms. Cloyer said, I was the appointed liaison, and there was quite a bit of back and forth through the negotiations before they reached this agreement.
I'd like to see dollar figures, because those are huge percentages, and when you're looking at administrative salaries, those are huge salaries. And we've also added a lot of administrative positions with the student population being flat or negative.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Did you have a motion on the floor? I didn't notate.
Did we?
Yes.
So moved, and
Okay, you did. I'm sorry, I didn't. Who was the,
I motion, Kevin seconded.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep. I started questioning myself on that one.
I know, that's why I was like, I don't know.
Mr. Grandelski?
Where, in relation to other towns and whatnot, how is this contract? Are we in the ballpark, or what is the?
Sitting in on negotiations, I can say we are not at the bottom, we're not at the top, we're roughly in the middle between other towns. And there's two different things they look at. It's look at local towns, but also there's, I forget what it's called, some district where it's not just local towns, it's more towns that are similar in size and other factors. So it gets compared two different ways. And when you looked at both sides of it, we were low to the middle, like on the lower side of the middle on one, and the other one we're roughly in the middle of after this with these increases. So it isn't like we're all the way at the top of the scale on either one of them or even close to it.
Did they look at per capita income in those
That, yes,
size towns?
yes, absolutely. That was one of the factors that was in there. So our, Ms. Gloria, our options on this are to accept it or,
So, right, so the motions are always done in a positive
yeah,
and an affirmative stance. So the motion on the floor is to accept the Killingley Administrators Association contract as presented. If it were to fail, then that's considered a rejection of it.
okay, all right. And then as you said, if it was a rejection, it would likely go to arbitration.
It would go to binding arbitration.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comment?
Binding arbitration is usually quite expensive, isn't it? Is there,
Yeah, and I don't have a number of what that
Yeah.
would cost for binding arbitration, but usually the arbitrator takes the last position from from both sides, and determines what the ultimate position is going to be. So, but testimony has to be submitted. It's similar to like a court hearing process.
Did they also look at how many administrators each district had that were comparative?
I believe so. I haven't looked at that documentation in, I would say, probably 6 to 8 weeks. The one thing that I was glad to see that was included in it was the memorandum of agreement, where you're going to have administrators from each of the 3 categories, being pre-K, elementary, middle school, high school, and curriculum coordinators, PPS, mental health, wellness, and family engagement, at the regular Board of Ed meetings. So that is something where they're now going to have, in a sense, 3 members of the administration at all the BOE regular meetings, which is something that they didn't have before, and it was never required before.
And wasn't that mental health coordinator, that was grant funded, and now that is going to be BOE funded? So that's another additional expense.
Do you know, Jason, was that part of the settlement? Did they settle and mandate that? Yeah.
That is, it's in, if you look at this, it's section D in the, if you're looking at the resolution, if you look at, there's A is salary, B is insurance, C is travel allowance, D is the memorandum of agreement. That was what I was just referencing there. So that is part of that. That was something that the BOE really pushed for to get in there. There was a lot of pushback on it, and there was a lot of back and forth, but it was something that stuck.
So that's the mandate from the state.
I'm
I'm asking about the state hearing. Did we get a mandate
Oh,
from
on that I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. That wasn't something that came up in the contract negotiation, the union negotiation. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15B, consideration and action on a resolution to introduce and set January 14, 2025 as a public hearing on an ordinance to amend the Killingley Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, by adding sections 2-167 through sections 2-169, a special commission vision committee ordinance. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make that motion. We lip synced it.
I was going to say, I could not call that one. The motion was made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Gloria, if you could just go over this, please.
Sure, and I just want to make clarification. We will be updating the section numbers. I just realized that our section numbers in the actual ordinance is not reflective of what's written in the title. That just clicked in my head, so I will make sure that we have that updated appropriately. So this is the establishment of the vision committee that the town council has been working on for a number of months. The ordinance subcommittee met twice to review. They had determined that they were looking for a 9-member commission with 3 alternate members. The commission is a temporary commission. It is a advisory commission to the town council. And the initial term, it would sunset on December 31st of 2026. That date can be extended by the town council. So that is not, a permanent, must be completed by then. But it does give them a working timeline to be able to meet responses back to the town council. The town council is the appointing body, just like every other board and commission, and the town council would fill any vacancies. Alternate members would initially serve for until December 1st of 2025, and then get reappointed, and that reappointment would run through the end of the commission, whether it's December 31st, 2026, or when the commission sunsets. And that really would give the town council the flexibility to, if they need to change, or if there's a need, an alternate needs to be replaced, you guys have that flexibility through that time period. For duties, the ordinance subcommittee had identified 4 in that, and that's community image, what is Killingly, branding. They identified 5, sorry. The third one is tourism, cultural, and recreation, and that is really, how do we drive tourism, cultural activity or cultural recognition, and then also recreation. There was feedback at your public information meeting about how we can look at expanding recreational opportunities in other areas of the community. Number 4 is communication and creative ways to engage the community, and that really works towards the council's initiatives on generating more community engagement in council actions and in council meetings, as well as communicating out to the public things that are happening, things that are going on, and meetings that are taking place around town business. And then lastly, conservation, development, and business, and that's just evaluating kind of the balance of that conservation and overall business growth, and how is that managed or seen in the future in conjunction with POCD. So this is the outline or the proposal for that ordinance. Today, you would be it's getting introduced. Today, if you decide to move forward, it would be setting the public hearing for January 14th for public to make comment on this proposed ordinance. And then on your January 14th, after that public hearing, you would have this ordinance for consideration and potential action.
Thank you. I will say I'm glad to see this is finally moving forward. This is something that I'd been talking about for going on 6 years now. So I'm glad to see the wheels are finally in motion and we're going forward with this. I think it'll be huge for the community. And I've always said, if you don't have a plan, you're just meandering along. So, any other comments? Mr. Grandowski.
Do we have people putting in applications?
Yeah, I think the last count I had was we were pretty close to 20 applicants for the Vision Committee. So we did, I've had Ashley going through them just to make sure that they would be a qualified individual for an applicant. We did have a couple of people that submitted applications that were non-residents of Killingly, and so by our charter requirements, you have to be a registered voter in the town of Killingly in order to be able to participate on a board or commission. And also to make
Or a resident of Killingly.
resident and registered. You have to be a registered voter. You have to be a registered voter.
That's right, because you get no party affiliation.
Correct, you have to be a
for
registered
minority
voter.
representation.
Yep.
That's right.
So the other thing that we've also been verifying is that they're not currently sitting on an active board or commission, because again, you cannot sit on multiple boards and commissions. So we've been, kind of communicating that out as we've had individuals. But I think you have about 20 that have submitted at this point in time. They've submitted interest.
That's a good sign, because our other boards and commissions are having a tough time. So I want to give it out to them. I appreciate their coming forward, and we can only pick, well, whatever it is here, so, 12. So, but if they want to go to some other board or commission, we'll greatly appreciate that, too.
We have their contact information now.
Now, the Vision, it's a temporary, right?
Yeah, so this is a temporary commission, very much like we do with charter revision commissions. That's a
So-
temporary commission.
But I thought, charter allowed if it was temporary, that you could be on 2 different ones. But of course, if we have 20 applications, maybe we would.
Yeah, and I
wanna-
will say that it's been very clear from the council and from the ordinance subcommittee that they really prefer to not have duplicating members that were sitting on existing boards or commissions, but rather new voices onto the vision committee. So we've really been trying to be responsive to that. And I imagine your vision committee will be meeting with all of the various stakeholders, which will include your boards and commissions.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up is 15C, consideration and action on the resolution to adjust the town manager's fiscal year 2024-2025 compensation pursuant to the annual performance evaluation. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made by Mr. Gambatista, seconded by Mr. Cottula. Ms. Clorio, can you go over this, please?
So this is submitted in the follow-up from the performance evaluation that I received at the November 12th meeting. The proposed increase is the same 2.5% that all the non-unions as received for the current year. It is what we budgeted for within the contingency line for the town manager's adjustment.
For clarification purposes, this was, the 2.5% was something the town manager requested. This was not something that was put forward by myself or other council members. I will open up for any discussion. I do know in years past, we have, other than the year that you gave your raise to other staff, one of the other groups in the town hall, we have typically done 2.5. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We've typically done the same percentage as the non-unions. That's typically what has been done historically with the town manager, except for there was one other additional time that a town council member increased it beyond that. And the council head did increase, do additional percentage, but largely, historically, that's typically, and that's what's presented before you today, is the same percentage as all the non-unions.
One question I had is in the item, in the resolution, the wording is pursuant to the annual performance evaluation. One thing I do think about is if you compare ratings on previous performance evaluations compared to this one, the rating system did change this time, but the overall rating compared to whether doesn't meet expectations, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. If you look at it from a neutral standpoint, it's definitely lower than previous evaluations. I just question the wording of pursuant to the annual performance evaluation in the resolution.
Just use the same language as all the other previous resolutions. I just didn't change the language.
Okay.
It's just, the language is meant as just the follow-up from the performance evaluation. That's all it's intended.
Okay.
Didn't change, I just didn't change the language.
What would the percentage be in reflection of the evaluation?
All depends how you look at it. If you're looking at what the percentage increases were with previous evaluations, like I said, it becomes a little difficult to look at because prior to Ms. Calorio coming on, the evaluation was a 1 through 5 with a also another opportunity to not able to make a decision on that, or not able to rate, unable to rate on that one. And that had your 3-point, which would be your neutral, would be the middle of the 1 through 5 scale. When Ms. Calorio came on, the evaluation had gotten changed to where what was given to the council was a 1 through 4, with 2 being your, in a sense, your neutral, having 1 negative and 2 positive. So it's difficult to use that as any kind of real actual rubric or rating compared to this one, because now with this one, that went through, I believe it was Personnel Subcommittee, going back to a actual, where you have an actual neutral, rather than a skewed rubric, it's hard to compare something that is actually now neutral to something that was skewed over the past few years. So looking at that, I mean, the council can always change that percentage. It's been, as Ms. Calorio said, it's been done before where it was increased over the 2.5%. The council has the ability to either increase it, decrease it, or keep the resolution as it is. If there were any changes, the changes would be made by someone amending the resolution.
I mean, I think the big key here is we change the rubric. So you really, it's like apples to oranges at this point.
And I agree, we changed the rubric back to what it was before. And the change that happened in the middle wasn't done by Personnel Subcommittee.
And it's passed, you know, I think we just move forward from here.
I'm going to say, in the corporate world, which, you know, is not my favorite place, a union contract is negotiated from two power sources, and in a, you know, free hire, corporate, whatever, it's related to performance. So if the performance thing was lower, then I think the raise should reflect that by a few points or whatever, you know, whatever people would think. And if people don't agree with that idea, that's okay too, but that's what happens at my job, so.
I will say, if just looking at the evaluation itself, if you take out the numbers and just look at comparing needs improvement, meets expectations, exceeds expectations, and just look at that number and don't even consider the 4, which actually skewed it to the higher side. If you're just looking at that part of it, the ratings in the past were higher than this evaluation.
Well, I'm in favor of keeping the resolution as it's written at the 2.5%.
Okay.
I'm also in favor of that as well.
Any further comments?
I would be in favor of lowering it to the 2 to reflect the number on the performance review.
So are you making a motion to amend the resolution?
I don't know, because they made their thing too, so I don't know. How would you do that? I can make that motion, then what, it just gets voted and we keep it? Or whatever?
If you were to make a motion to amend it to 2%, there would be a vote on the
How do
amendment.
people feel about 2? Does people think 2.5, these guys 2.5? I'd go with 2. Does anyone think lower, higher?
One
I
thing-
can make a motion to lower to 2, and then people can just vote. Or somebody else can throw in an idea.
One thing I will bring up, if you look at it from a dollar standpoint, when you're, and even in my industry, the people at the higher tiers, percentage-wise, don't always get as big of a raise as the people that are making lower-level incomes. Meaning, your upper management, percentage-wise, doesn't always get as big of an increase as your middle management, due to, if you start looking at least in my industry, and I believe a lot of that is due to the dollar value. Your top-level management, a 2% increase is going to be substantially more than a middle-level management 2% increase. So, I mean, that's always one thing to be looked at as well, is 2% on all the other non-union employees may be $1,000 less than this. So there's that aspect to look at. And one thing I think about, one thing that's always brought up that I hear all the time is how there's an ever-growing increase between middle class and upper class. Not saying that this pay scale is upper class, but if that's the case, where upper class is getting the same percentage increase as the middle class, there's never going to be a catch-up.
That was exactly my point with the administrative salaries of the BOE.
Yeah. So are you making a motion to amend it to 2%?
I mean, unless someone wants to make a different motion, I will make that motion to amend it to 2%.
Is
I'll
there-
second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Ms. Murphy to amend the current motion to 2%, and that motion was seconded by Mr. Whitehead. Open up to further discussion, and Ms. Clorio, if you could factor what the numbers would be on that. Okay, okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second to change it to 2%. Any comments on discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
I'm going to have to call for a roll call vote on that one. Ms. Gloria, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Barclay? Yes. Ms. Wakefield?
No.
Mr. Kutula?
No.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead?
Yes.
Mr. Gambatista?
No.
Mr. Grandelsky?
I abstain.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Motion passes 4-3. So the motion on the table is now the amended motion. Ms. Gloria, if you could get those figures.
So the increase in the salary would be changed to $3,130.31, and the total would be $159,645.20. I would leave the 4,400 because that's an amount not to exceed.
Thank you. One thing I will say, me being in favor of amending the motion this way, is especially with the wording of the resolution where it's tied to pursuant to an annual performance evaluation. And we all clearly saw the performance evaluation this year. We saw that there was quite a few council members that identified areas for improvement, more so than in the past, in past evaluations. And I think of, if you're tying a raise to a performance evaluation, then you should also be tying in a sense, the incentive. If you're feeling a financial impact based on your performance evaluation, most people are going to work harder to try and improve if they're seeing a financial impact for something. So, Any further discussion? Seeing none, I have a feeling we'll do a roll call vote, but all those in favor say aye.
What's the motion?
The motion is, to increase the compensation, the numbers will be, this item proposes to increase the town manager's compensation by 2% or $3,130.31 per annum and to transfer the amount not to exceed $4,400 from the contingent account to the town manager budget, personnel services, and employee benefits accounts. So this is the motion as amended, because the amendment passed, so now this is the motion as amended, which would be a 2% increase. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Nay.
I abstain.
Abstentions? So we have 5 for, 2 against, and 1 abstention. Motion carries.
Oh, can we call for a roll call vote?
On that one? We can do
I
roll
hate
call
when
vote.
it's
That's up
just
to
a
the chair.
blurb, you look back and it's
Yeah.
just like this.
I
blurb.
voted
What-
for it because I think $800 is ridiculous to be squattering over. I think she deserves what the original was, but I'd be more than happy to give her at least $3,100 more than,
Is this time for comment?
but there's no reason to do a roll call. I was the one that changed the vote.
I call for a roll call, am I allowed to?
That's up to the chair as to
Yeah,
whether or
we'll-
not you
we'll-
need to
we'll-
retake the
we'll
vote.
allow-
Usually,
We'll allow for a roll call vote.
I think honestly, we had discussed at some point, like 6 months ago, anytime there was like a vote where you can't just say here and it's a blurb, that we would do a roll call vote.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to do a roll call.
Mr. Grandowski,
I abstain.
Ms. Barclay? Mr. Gambatista?
No.
Ms. Wakefield?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehead?
Yes.
Mr. Cottula?
No.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
So that is 5 for, 2 against, and 1 abstention.
Correct.
Thank you. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 15D, consideration and action on a resolution to authorize an agreement for the town to provide tax collection services to the South Killenly Fire District. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Ms. Barclay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Cottula. Ms. Colorio, could you go over this, please?
The South Killingley Fire District approached the town to discuss entering into an agreement to provide tax collection services to the district, very similar to what we do with the Danielson Borough. We've been the tax collector for the Danielson Borough since 2013, and that process has gone very well. The borough fully reimburses the town all costs associated with that collection. That's what this agreement is that is before you. It is essentially the exact same agreement as the boroughs. We kept the same requirements and the same methodology of calculation for cost association. We actually utilize number of collection accounts and take that as a percentage of the total collection accounts that we have to collect on. They also would be responsible for any additional costs for software integration and merging of data into our system, so they're fully on the hook for that. The South Killenly Fire District did approve this at their approved entering into agreement with the town at their annual meeting. I have had town attorney has reviewed, and they did not find any modifications to what you have before you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
So
Ms. Barclay?
I'm in South Killingly, and I have heard complaints from people that they don't receive their bill. There was an online payment option where I thought I paid the bill, but it never went through. So then you don't know if you've paid or if you haven't paid. There's nowhere to check. And people have received late payments, notices, not, you get all of the different taxes at the same time, not realizing that there wasn't one for the South Killingly Fire Department, and, having these huge late payments, not even knowing that they owe taxes. And everything currently is pretty much done by hand.
So if you paid online, it didn't show, it wouldn't show you like a receipt, it doesn't do that?
It didn't show me anything. I thought I paid for it, paid,
Yeah.
but
So this process of transitioning over to the town, doing collection for them, they would have to assume the same collection time periods or billing periods as the town. So instead of once they usually issue their bills in September, they have to modify to the town's quarterly process and adhere to all of our requirements with regards to billing collection. We also assist them in placing liens, but they're responsible for any lien fees associated. And they also are responsible for signing off on any certificates of correction, any CFCs that come through the assessor's department. And we essentially, what we do is once we collect we do the collection, monthly we reconcile and submit all revenue to the districts. And if there's any refunds, the districts have to apply the refunds. We communicate if we've identified any refunds, or if somebody comes, months later with, but I sold the car, I've already paid the bill, and they want to get a correction, and it results in a refund. We communicate to the district how much they have to refund, and the district has to process that refund. We don't process their refunds.
Does this have the potential for us to need to add personnel?
No.
In our department?
No, this really wouldn't. The biggest lift is getting their system on. Our tax collecting office has already begun the process of evaluating what would need to be done. We've done this once with the borough, so we're pretty astute as to, kind of what we have to look for during that conversion process. And really, once it's programmed in, it's a matter of, just applying the payments accordingly, which is done through the programming. So it's really a lot of the computer programming that has to take place.
I think dividing the payments into 4 will also be beneficial for people who are having problems with paying their bills, because the fire district tax is quadrupled.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session before item 15E.
I'll make the motion.
Including the town manager and the finance director. So motion was made by Ms. Barclay,
I made it.
made by Mr. Gamptista, second by Ms. Barclay. Discussion? And we're going into executive session for 17A, pending litigation with tax appeal.
Are you going into executive
and-
session for the other two as well? Okay.
That was gonna be my recommendation, is going in for 17A, 17B, and 17C. That way, we're not going into executive session, coming back out, going back in, coming back out multiple times. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We're going into executive session, and it is currently 9:19 PM. This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of the Killenly Town Council. It is currently, my phone is shut off. What time is it, Patty? 9:58 PM, and we are out of executive session. At this time, we'll move back to item 15E, consideration and action on a resolution to authorize the town attorney to resolve the Walgreen Eastern Connecticut Incorporated tax appeal by entry into a stipulated judgment. Can I get a motion to adopt this?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Ms. Barclay and seconded by, I believe it was Mr. Cottula. Discussion? Ms. Gloria, for the public, can you just go over this so they're aware?
Sure, so this stipulated judgment concludes or resolves a tax appeal by Walgreens from the most recent revaluation. Our values were not substantially different. This will would result in an overall reduction in their taxes by just under $7,000. And it would reflect the revised values as outlined in the stipulated agreement.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up in the agenda is 16, council member reports and comments. Ms. Barclay, could you start?
I was unable to attend the planning and zoning, which was a meeting at the high school going over the battery storage. From the Housing Authority meeting, the Plainfield Housing Authority wants to get rid of their Section 8 housing vouchers, which encompasses Oneiko and Jewett City. They're not sure if, Carol Green wasn't sure if they could exactly do that, but if so, she was thinking of taking over their 200 vouchers, and it would be income for the Housing Authority of about $180,000 a year. Killingly has about 90 vouchers, and anyone can apply for a voucher in Killingly, and they're portable anywhere in the United States. So she's asking for more information from the Plainfield Housing. And their elevator is back in service. It was a 2-week transition. It took 4 to 6 weeks to fix. Maple Courts 2 had a small loss of about $300. The sprinkler system needed some repair. The crystal water seems to be very corrosive, and it's corroding their sprinklers, and they had a bill of $7,000, which brought them into the red from they had fittings that were stripped, and the water pumps, something in the water keeps corroding everything in their sprinkler system. And they have 2 new maintenance people. So Carol said that if you need anybody for maintenance, make sure you hire somebody over 40. She said the guys are great, they're doing a good job, and they're working very hard.
Thank you. Ms. Wakefield.
So I attended 2 of the 3 multi-generational meetings they had at the high school about the mascot. It was very impressive for the number of students that were involved. Dr. Nash was kind of like the moderator. And the students really are the ones that were leading the discussion. Sorry. Maggie, our town historian, went over like Killingly history from the settlement through recent times. And the students were very interested in that, and a lot of their ideas were generated based off of that. They think there was like 4 or 5 that they're working on. They were using AI to help come up with a possible what it would look like. And I believe Dr. Nash said that the students, the art students, were actually working on generating potential what a mascot logo would look like. I went to the new tree dedication on the 18th of November. It was actually pretty well attended considering. And that there was more lights than I think there was tree, but it was very, I like the LEDs. It makes everything just so much brighter. Rec Commission did not meet. They didn't have a quorum. But Frosty's Big Night went well. I did attend, I was at and helping Ms. George set up a wreath table at the FFA night at the high school. That is, if you ever have never attended, that is an incredible event. A lot of the ag students actually sell some of their products, and it's a great way to support students and I did go to the semi along with Dr. Nash for the 42-7 win. We are scheduled to play our final Friday night. I was just at the high school this morning, and I believe they said there's a fan bus that's going to be leaving the school Friday at 4:30. Game starts at 6:30. It's at Rentschler Field, so if anybody actually wanted to drive down there, all tickets have to be purchased online. Otherwise, you can't get them at the gate, and so you have to do everything electronically, but it's Killingly's football team has not disappointed this year, and so it'll be a really good game because we're actually playing Sheehan, and it's the one game that was probably the closest we had all year. It was a 32-26 score. Sheehan actually beat Wyndham, which is a very good team, basically the same score that we beat Waterford. So it should be a good toe-to-toe. And I know the team's working very hard this week to get in the right mindset for that. So hopefully we'll have a new state championship for Christmas.
Thank you. Mr. Cotillo.
As I mentioned, the last permanent building committee meeting was just to set the dates for the meetings for 2025, but the members were quite excited to get the new George Schlob on there as a member. So hopefully he'll be there for the next meeting, and I think he's going to be a big contributor to the projects going forward. And I'd just like to thank Parks and Recs for how well Davis Parks looked. I mean, they always do a great job there. And even without Bruno, they still got it looking good.
Ms. Murphy?
I attended WPCA, and it was basically a full house with the public and people asking to be hooked up and being denied. I attended both BOE meetings. Dr. Nash explained what she explained to us about the options for non-lapsing to them. The bullying committees met a couple times. The new mascot names met a couple times. I do believe they had the retirement ceremony of the mascot on the 26th. They honored the FFA. I have it on my phone if I wanted to look and see if I missed anything. Let me just take a peek here. See if there's anything. a lot about transferring money, and they were approved, reorganizing their staff. And they are going to have a new Spanish teacher, mascot. Okay, so that's good. P&Z I attended as well. I did not remember that I attended it, so I don't have those notes. But I also attended the battery storage meeting before it. I went to the tree dedication, the Teachers Award dinner. I had a question. I bumped into a citizen in the hall on my way to the bathroom. This is a side, but I don't know where to put it in. It's comment time, right? Committees and comment. If we could get the Lieutenant Governor to come on Friday, are you interested in that, Mary, or no?
I'm more than happy to coordinate if we have the availability to, if they have the availability. We were reaching out to their office for coordination, so.
Yeah, supposedly it can be done, so, you didn't want to step on your toes. Okay.
Whatever works.
Okay.
Mr. Wayhead.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Gambatista.
I attended the rededication, the Tree of Life, which is well attended. It's very nice. I liked Mr. Catula. The park is, it's a beacon for us. It's so beautiful. You take things for granted sometimes, but they really do a wonderful job. Anytime someone comes to visit me that's not from here, they're always amazed. That was wonderful. They did not have quorum for Board of Rec, and I was away for Ag Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelsky.
The Conservation Commission, we were talking about the forest management plan and the logging operation at Chase Reservoir. They were discussing their environmental award. And then, as most people don't understand, we have hunting at the Klondike Conservation Area. And I happened to be on vacation up on the Cape, and I found something. There was a placard on a particular piece of land over there, and it was, how do you put the rules and regulations for the hunters and the recreational people, and the proper protocols and this and that. And personally, knowing that there's hunting on a piece of property like that, you won't catch me near there. So I don't know if they got together with you for proper language to put on a placard. They were supposed to, and
You mean the Conservation Commission?
yes.
I'll circle back with staff.
And because I took a picture of something, but my phone is too old, and I couldn't get the whole document. But I forget what town it is on the Cape that we could probably contact them. And when I read it, it sounded pretty good, but to mix the two, when my wife engaged some hunters on my property, and she asked them, what gives you the right to be on the property? The weapon. DEP could have cared less, state cops could have cared, that nobody wanted to intervene, that, they were trespassing and all of that, so. But anyway, we need to have some strong language or something out there to protect us a little bit more, or here we are trying to encourage people to walk on the property, but I don't know if everybody has a hunter, because they gotta go through your office to get the hunting permit. And I attended the battery storage public meeting and the associated wetlands meeting, and I'm very frustrated that the town just did not ask for an extension. I mean, these guys come to us, or went to the siting council, and basically, they don't have anything on file. But everybody was afraid that if they don't move, like in the wetlands, if they don't move on looking into this, that, we're gonna be put on the back seat. But if the siting council gave those guys a 2-month extension, I'm sitting there at the wetlands meeting, and there's drawings specified in one document that the physical drawing doesn't appear. we should have been on board, get the extension no matter what. And then if the whole persona of those people, they could care less of where we are. And we've got to take advantage of every legal option that we have, and we did not do so. So if something comes up and we missed it in the time that we have to apply, comment, and then if we find something that we could have commented on, because if we got an extension, they're going to hold us accountable to that. And so I'm kind of disappointed. And I'm kind of disappointed maybe that the attorney didn't automatically get that extension. And then in viewing some of, and being part of some of the P&Z meetings and whatnot, I'm sort of, the attorneys are out to lunch. I'm very disappointed in their engagement or whatever. Same way with the with the Water Pollution Control Authority. We're paying a lot of money for something, and if they're at the meeting and it's an issue, I think that, you know, they should weigh in, but maybe they have to be specifically asked, I don't know.
Thank you. I did attend the battery storage planning and zoning meeting that was at the high school. Also attended the Teacher of the Year banquet and attended the Sustainability CT Awards ceremony as well. That's all I have. So we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up on the agenda is adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Mr. Kurtula. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned.